Tiana had always loved walking home from school. The streets were usually quiet this time of day, and the sunlight filtered gently through the trees, creating patterns on the pavement. She had her headphones on, listening to her favorite music, and she hummed along as she walked. For a moment, everything felt normal, calm, and safe. She had taken this same route for years. She knew every crack in the sidewalk, every lamppost, every small shop that lined the streets. Sometimes she waved at neighbors tending their gardens, and sometimes she paused to watch kids playing on the playground. Today, however, something felt different. The air was heavier. The usual noises of birds and distant traffic seemed muffled, and her instinct whispered that she wasn't alone. At first, she tried to ignore it. Maybe it was just her imagination. But as she continued, she noticed a group of bikers ahead. They were clustered near a corner, engines rumbling quietly, shadows stretching long across the road. Tiana's stomach tightened. She had heard stories about these bikers, how they bullied people, scared neighborhoods, and caused trouble without reason. Most kids in town knew to avoid them. Her first thought was to cross the street, take a detour, and keep walking. But as she tried to step off the curb, one of the bikers looked directly at her. His eyes were cold, calculating, and something about his stare made her freeze. The others noticed her too, laughing quietly at first, then louder, like a warning. Tiana realized that they had seen her and there was no easy way to escape. Her pace quickened, but so did theirs. The bikers started moving toward her, engines revving, boots thumping on the pavement. Tiana's heart pounded against her chest like it wanted to break free. She wanted to run, but her legs felt heavy, almost as if the fear was rooting her to the spot. One of the bikers stepped in front of her path, blocking any chance of turning back. "Hey, girl," he sneered. "Where do you think you're going?" His voice was rough, loud, meant to scare. Tiana swallowed hard. She tried to speak, tried to make her voice steady, but it came out as a soft, trembling whisper. I just want to go home." The biker laughed, a harsh, grating sound that made her flinch. "Home, huh? Maybe we should make things interesting first." He reached for something in his jacket. Tiana's eyes widened in horror. Instinct took over. She tried to sidestep, to push past, but the bikers closed in from all sides. Panic surged like a wave crashing over her. She had never felt fear like this before. Not even when she got lost at the mall or when a storm trapped her outside. This was different. This was real danger. Just as the situation seemed hopeless, a small flicker of hope appeared in her mind. She remembered stories she had heard about people who had stood up to bullies, who had intervened in moments of crisis. She wasn't sure if anyone could help her now, but she had to believe that she wasn't completely alone. She took a deep breath, trying to steady her trembling hands and legs. Meanwhile, a few blocks away, Jason Statham was in his car, following the same gang of bikers. He had been tracking them for days, observing their patterns, their hangouts, their reckless behavior. He wasn't a police officer today. He was off duty, working on a private case that had unexpectedly connected him to this gang. He knew they were dangerous, unpredictable, and capable of terrible things if no one stopped them. As he drove slowly, keeping a safe distance, his sharp eyes scanned every movement. The bikers didn't notice him yet, their attention focused elsewhere. But Jason noticed their sudden change in direction, their nervous energy. Something had shifted, and his instincts told him to stay alert. Back in the lot, Tiana's situation worsened. One of the bikers pulled out a lighter. The small flame danced in the sunlight, but it was enough to make Tiana's blood run cold. She realized the threat wasn't just intimidation anymore, it was real. Her mind raced, trying to think of any way to get out of this alive. She looked around desperately, searching for an escape, a gap, anything. The bikers closed in. One grabbed her backpack and threw it aside roughly. Papers scattered, books tumbled, and Tiana's pulse skyrocketed. She stumbled back, her hand catching on a chain-link fence, her fingers scraping against the metal. Pain shot through her, but she barely noticed. Her focus was on survival. She thought of screaming for help, but the bikers' menacing laughter drowned out any sound she could make. She tried to steady her breathing, to think logically, but fear clouded her mind. Every instinct told her to run, but there was nowhere to go. They had cornered her completely. At that very moment, Jason Statham's eyes locked onto the scene. From a distance, he saw the small figure of a girl trapped by the bikers, her arms raised slightly as if to protect herself. He didn't hesitate. Every muscle in his body tensed. He knew the danger was immediate, that every second counted. He parked his car a few streets away, making sure he remained unseen. Then, without any noise, he moved on foot, his steps deliberate, calculated, silent. His years of training, his awareness, and his experience in dangerous situations guided every move. He didn't panic. He didn't overthink. He simply focused on reaching the girl in time. Tiana didn't notice him yet. She was too focused on the immediate threat, too consumed by fear. The lighter flickered again and her eyes widened. She braced herself, thinking the worst was about to happen. Her mind flashed images of pain, of screaming, of things she had only ever seen in movies. But then, out of the corner of her eye, she noticed a figure moving quickly toward them. It was a man. Tall, strong, confident, moving with purpose. The bikers hadn't seen him yet, but Tiana did. A glimmer of hope sparked inside her. She didn't know who he was, but the sight of someone coming to help gave her strength. She straightened her back slightly, ready to try one last move, one last attempt to survive. Jason was almost there. He assessed the bikers in seconds, noting their positions, their intentions, and the danger they posed. He didn't run blindly. Every step was careful, controlled, calculated to protect the girl without giving the bikers a chance to react violently. The bikers, sensing movement behind them, turned slightly, but it was too late. Jason was already closing the distance. Tiana watched in disbelief, unable to comprehend what was happening. Her fear mixed with a strange sense of relief. Maybe, just maybe, she wouldn't be alone in this after all. In that tense moment, time seemed to slow. The bikers were frozen, caught between their plan and the sudden appearance of a stranger who clearly meant business. Tiana felt her heart still racing, but now it was accompanied by a cautious hope. Someone had come for her. Someone who could fight back against the danger she had faced alone just moments ago. And just like that, everything hung in the balance. The girl trapped, the bikers closing in, and the man who had appeared seemingly out of nowhere. It was a moment filled with fear, uncertainty, and a spark of hope that would soon change everything. Tiana's heart was still racing from the sudden arrival of the man who had appeared seemingly out of nowhere. She didn't know who he was, but she could see in his eyes that he meant business. There was a calm confidence in the way he moved, like someone who had faced danger many times before and always came out on top. Her fear didn't disappear, but for the first time in minutes it felt a little more manageable. The bikers, on the other hand, were confused. They had expected to scare her, to intimidate her, maybe even to humiliate her in some cruel way. But now this stranger had arrived and they didn't know how to react. Some of them exchanged nervous glances. One of the bikers, a tall man with tattoos covering his arms, tightened his grip on the lighter, trying to hold on to control. But there was a tension in the air, a realization that they might have underestimated the situation. Tiana took a small step back, keeping her eyes on the lighter, then flicked a glance at the stranger. He was moving carefully but quickly, positioning himself between her and the bikers. She could see the muscles in his arms tense, ready for any sudden attack. His eyes scanned the bikers' faces, reading every movement, every intention. Her mind was spinning. How had this man appeared so suddenly? How did he know to come here? And most importantly, would he be able to protect her? Tiana didn't have time to think long. The bikers were still closing in, and she could see the lighter flicking again in one of their hands. Her pulse pounded in her ears, and she felt her legs trembling under her. She tried to take a deep breath, but it came out shaky and uneven. She reminded herself that panic wouldn't help her. She needed to stay alert, to be ready to move if she had the chance. The stranger's presence gave her courage, but it didn't remove the danger. She still had to act carefully. Meanwhile, Jason, the man who had appeared, moved even closer to the bikers. He didn't shout or make a sudden move. Instead, he used his body language to assert control. His posture was firm, his steps measured. He was showing them, without words, that he wasn't afraid, and that he was capable of handling the situation. One of the bikers raised his voice, trying to intimidate both Tiana and the stranger. "Hey, you can't just walk in here. This is our business." His words were loud and aggressive, but there was a hint of doubt in his tone. He wasn't sure anymore if he was in control. Jason didn't answer. He continued moving slowly but deliberately, closing the distance in a way that made it clear he could act, faster than any of them expected. Tiana watched him in awe, realizing that he was not just a stranger. He was someone trained to handle danger, someone who knew how to protect her without escalating the situation unnecessarily. The bikers began to circle, trying to surround him and regain their sense of control, but Jason was too quick. He shifted his position, anticipating their moves, always staying one step ahead. His movements were smooth, precise, and calculated. He didn't use unnecessary force, but his presence alone made it clear that he could. Tiana's mind raced. She knew she couldn't just stand there forever. If the bikers made a sudden move, she might not have a chance to escape. She looked around, trying to find something, anything, that could help her. There was a broken fence nearby, a stack of old wooden pallets, and a narrow alley behind the lot. Any of these could be used to create distance, to buy her time. Jason seemed to sense her thoughts. He gave her a brief, calm nod, as if telling her to stay alert but trust him. That small gesture gave her a spark of confidence. She didn't fully understand him, but she could feel that he had a plan, and that plan included keeping her safe. The tallest biker, the one with the tattoos, decided to take the first aggressive action. He swung the lighter toward her again, but Jason was ready. In a flash, he stepped forward, grabbed the biker's wrist, and twisted it just enough to make him drop the lighter. The small flame sputtered and went out, and Tiana let out a quiet sigh of relief. The other bikers froze, their confidence shaken. They had expected an easy target, a frightened girl, and now they faced someone who moved with purpose, skill, and precision. They whispered to each other, trying to decide what to do, but hesitation had already given Jason the upper hand. Tiana took a small step forward, her legs still shaky but her courage growing. She realized she wasn't completely helpless. The presence of someone willing to fight for her gave her hope. She didn't know what would happen next, but for the first time since the bikers had appeared, she felt like she might survive. The bikers, now realizing that things were not going according to plan, became more aggressive in their gestures, but less coordinated in their actions. They tried to intimidate Jason with shouts and gestures, but he remained calm. His eyes scanned the lot, noting every possible threat, every way the bikers might try to attack. Jason didn't wait for them to make the next move. He acted first, stepping closer, his body ready to intercept any attack. One biker tried to swing a chain, but Jason dodged smoothly, closing in and neutralizing the threat without causing unnecessary harm. Every movement was precise, deliberate, and controlled. Tiana watched, barely breathing, as the man protected her without needing to shout, without needing to fight recklessly. She realized something important in that moment. This wasn't just about brute strength. It was about awareness, timing, and calmness under pressure. Jason had all of these qualities, and that made him more dangerous to the bikers than any physical attack could. The bikers were starting to back off slightly, unsure of what to do next. They hadn't expected resistance, and certainly not someone who moved with such skill and confidence. Jason took advantage of the hesitation, positioning himself between them and Tiana, making it clear that she was not going to be an easy target. Tiana could finally take a small breath. Her hands were still trembling, her heart still racing, but she was no longer paralyzed by fear. She had hope, and that hope gave her a chance to survive, a chance to think clearly. She looked at the stranger, silently thanking him for stepping in at the right moment. At that point, Jason began to guide Tiana slowly toward a safer area, away from the bikers. He didn't run or rush her. Every step was measured, ensuring that they maintained control while avoiding unnecessary confrontation. Tiana followed, her trust in him growing with every step. The bikers, seeing that their plan was failing, tried to regroup, but Jason's presence was intimidating. They could feel that any sudden move could lead to them being overpowered. Their shouts grew louder, more desperate, but the fear in their eyes betrayed them. Tiana realized that this was not just luck. Jason had been prepared. He had anticipated danger and had arrived at the right moment. She felt a mix of awe and gratitude, knowing that without him things could have ended very differently. As they moved, Jason stayed alert, scanning the surroundings for any other threats. He was cautious but confident. He knew the bikers were dangerous, but he also knew that he had the skills and the presence to keep Tiana safe. Every step was a calculated move to ensure her protection while avoiding escalation. Finally, they reached a corner of the lot where Jason felt they could momentarily pause and reassess. Tiana took a deep breath, her body trembling but her mind slowly clearing. She looked at Jason, wanting to speak but finding her voice caught in her throat. He gave her a reassuring nod, silently telling her that she was safe for the moment and that things were not over yet, but they had gained a small victory. Tiana realized that courage wasn't just about fighting back physically. It was about staying calm, staying aware, and trusting the right people. Jason had shown her that in the most terrifying moments, someone with the right mindset could change the outcome completely. The bikers were still nearby, but their confidence had been shaken. They whispered among themselves, unsure whether to continue or retreat. Jason stayed vigilant, ready to act if necessary, but careful not to provoke them further than needed. Tiana, meanwhile, felt a strange mixture of fear, relief, and admiration. She didn't know the stranger's name, she didn't know where he came from, but she knew that he had just saved her life. The memory of the lighter, the fear in the biker's eyes, and the sudden sense of hope that Jason brought would stay with her forever. In that moment, she learned something important. Sometimes danger appears without warning, and fear can paralyze even the strongest among us. But in those moments, a calm, focused, and brave person can make all the difference. And for Tiana, Jason Statham had become that difference. Tiana's legs were still shaking, but she followed Jason carefully as he guided her toward the edge of the lot. Every step was cautious, every glance alert. She could feel the adrenaline still coursing through her veins, her heart hammering in her chest. The bikers hadn't given up yet. They were regrouping, whispering, and trying to figure out their next move. But Jason stayed between her and the danger, calm, focused, and ready for anything. Tiana looked around nervously. The lot was littered with old trash cans, broken crates, and scattered debris. She thought about how easy it would have been for the bikers to corner her completely, to make it impossible to escape. Her stomach twisted at the thought. She shivered, realizing how close she had come to real harm. But she also felt a strange sense of relief. Jason was here, and for the first time she felt that someone was truly protecting her. Jason's eyes were sharp and alert. He scanned the bikers' movements carefully, reading every step, every twitch. He could tell they were unsure now, nervous, realizing that their easy intimidation tactic had failed. One of the bikers, a shorter man with a scar across his cheek, tried to act aggressive, waving his fists in a show of bravado. But Jason didn't flinch. His stance was firm, controlled, and his calm confidence made the bikers hesitate. Tiana noticed something else. She could see a flicker of fear in the bikers' eyes. They had expected to scare her, to make her panic, and maybe to hurt her if she didn't comply. But they hadn't expected resistance, especially not from someone like Jason. He moved with a precision that was both terrifying and reassuring at the same time. He didn't shout or threaten. He simply moved with purpose, positioning himself strategically to protect her. Tiana felt her pulse slow slightly. She realized she could breathe more easily now. The immediate danger wasn't over, but the worst part, the helplessness, was gone. She didn't have to fight alone anymore. She had someone who knew exactly what to do. Someone who could think clearly when fear made her mind clouded. The bikers exchanged quick whispers. Tiana couldn't hear exactly what they were saying, but the tension was obvious. They were trying to decide whether to push forward or retreat. Their usual confidence had been shaken by Jason's sudden appearance and his skillful handling of the situation. One of them kicked a trash can, making it clatter loudly, trying to intimidate both of them, but Jason didn't react to the noise. His focus remained on the bikers, predicting their movements, ready to act if needed. Tiana took a small step closer to Jason, silently seeking reassurance. He gave her a brief nod, almost like a silent promise. "Stay close, stay calm. I've got this." That small gesture made her feel stronger. She realized that even in terrifying situations, support and guidance could change everything. Courage didn't mean acting alone. Sometimes it meant trusting the right person to take the lead. Suddenly, the scar-faced biker lunged toward Jason, trying to catch him off guard. Jason's reaction was immediate. He sidestepped effortlessly, using the man's momentum against him. The biker stumbled, almost losing his balance, and Jason calmly pushed him back just enough to regain control without hurting him unnecessarily. Tiana's eyes widened in amazement. Every movement was precise, controlled, and effective. Jason wasn't just strong, he was strategic. The other bikers hesitated, realizing that their intimidation tactics were useless. They were used to scaring people into submission, but Jason didn't respond the way they expected. He didn't panic, he didn't shout, and he didn't make careless moves. Instead, he assessed, reacted, and stayed one step ahead. Tiana felt a spark of hope growing inside her. Maybe, just maybe, they could get through this alive. Jason took a step forward slowly, carefully, keeping a calm but commanding presence. He positioned himself in a way that forced the bikers to either back down or make a mistake. His strategy was clear: protect Tiana at all costs, avoid unnecessary violence, and create opportunities for escape. Tiana followed his lead, moving cautiously behind him, her trust in him growing with every step. The bikers tried to regroup, whispering urgently among themselves. Their leader, the tall man with tattoos, looked frustrated. He waved his hands, trying to signal the others, but the uncertainty in his face was evident. They had underestimated Jason, and now they weren't sure how to proceed. Their usual confidence had vanished, replaced by hesitation and fear. Tiana realized that the situation was changing in her favor. The bikers were no longer in control. Their plan to scare and harm her had failed. Jason had shifted the balance entirely. She felt a small sense of empowerment, even though she hadn't acted physically herself. Being protected didn't make her powerless. It gave her the strength to stay alert and think clearly. One of the bikers picked up a piece of wood, waving it threateningly. He took a step toward Jason, trying to intimidate him. But Jason didn't flinch. He moved with quick precision, knocking the wood aside and positioning himself firmly between Tiana and the threat. Every move was deliberate, every reaction calculated. Tiana felt a mixture of awe and relief. This stranger was truly capable, and she was witnessing courage in action. The tension in the lot was palpable. The bikers whispered urgently, unsure of their next move. Their aggressive energy was still there, but it was chaotic, disorganized. They were no longer predators. They were uncertain and fearful. Jason noticed this and used it to his advantage. He shifted slightly, guiding Tiana toward a safer part of the lot, where there was an alley she could escape through if needed. Tiana's mind was racing. She knew they weren't safe yet, but having a plan made her feel slightly more in control. She stayed close to Jason, moving as he moved, trusting his judgment completely. The bikers followed for a moment, unsure whether to attack or retreat. Their hesitation gave them a small advantage, a chance to escape without confrontation. Jason continued to position himself strategically, blocking any direct path the bikers could take toward Tiana. He didn't shout or make sudden moves. He let his presence speak for him. The bikers could feel the difference. They could sense that any rash action could result in them being overpowered, and that realization slowed them down. Tiana began to notice small details she hadn't before. The way Jason moved was careful but confident. His eyes scanned constantly, reading every movement. He wasn't just reacting. He was anticipating. Every step, every gesture, every shift in his body was designed to protect her and maintain control of the situation. She realized that courage wasn't just about fighting. It was about awareness, strategy, and calmness under pressure. The bikers, growing more desperate, started making mistakes. One of them tripped over a crate. Another accidentally kicked a trash can that clanged loudly. Every mistake gave Jason a small advantage. He remained calm, never raising his voice, never acting recklessly. His confidence seemed to intimidate them more than any physical action could. Tiana's fear began to change. She was still scared, but it was now mixed with a cautious hope. She saw that danger didn't always have to result in harm. With the right mindset and skills, it could be managed and even overcome. She stayed close to Jason, moving with him as he guided her toward the alley, each step measured, careful, and deliberate. The bikers hesitated, unsure whether to continue following or retreat. Their energy was scattered, their coordination gone. Jason had taken control of the situation without needing to shout or fight recklessly. Tiana felt a deep sense of relief. For the first time, she realized that she wasn't alone, and that someone truly capable was looking out for her. As they reached the edge of the lot, Jason prepared for any sudden moves. He could see the bikers whispering, gesturing, trying to decide what to do next. Tiana stayed close, her trust in him growing with every moment. She understood now that survival in these situations wasn't just about strength. It was about awareness, timing, and strategy. Jason's calm, confident presence was changing the dynamics entirely. The bikers' usual tactics of intimidation and aggression were no longer effective. Tiana felt a mix of fear, awe, and hope. Fear because danger was still present. Awe because she was witnessing skill and courage in action. And hope because she realized that with the right person by her side, she might survive. For a few moments, everything seemed frozen. The bikers unsure, Jason focused, and Tiana quietly moving behind him. Every second mattered. One wrong move could still be dangerous, but the situation had shifted. The power dynamic was no longer in the bikers' favor. Tiana realized something important. Courage wasn't just about fighting back physically. It was about staying calm, staying alert, and trusting the right person to act decisively. Jason was showing her exactly that, and in that moment she felt a strange but powerful sense of security. Even in the middle of chaos, Tiana's heart was still pounding, but she felt a small measure of relief as she followed Jason through the edge of the lot. The bikers were still there, lingering, whispering among themselves, trying to figure out their next move. But the fear in their eyes was growing. Jason had changed everything. They had expected an easy target, someone who would panic, cry, or scream for help. Instead, they were facing someone who moved with calm precision, ready for whatever they tried next. Tiana glanced at him, seeing the focus in his eyes. He wasn't just looking at the bikers. He was reading them, anticipating every action, every thought, every hesitation. She realized then that this was not just a fight, it was a game of strategy, and Jason was playing it perfectly. He had become the shield she needed, and more than that, he had shifted the energy of the situation entirely. One of the bikers, the tallest one with tattoos up his arms, tried to regain control. He stepped forward aggressively, his fists clenched, his face twisted in anger. "You think you can stop us?" he shouted. His voice was loud, but there was an edge of doubt now. He hadn't expected resistance, and he was starting to realize that his intimidation tactics were failing. Jason didn't respond verbally. He didn't need to. His presence was enough. Every movement he made was deliberate. He adjusted his stance slightly, placing himself between Tiana and the biker, and in that small motion, he conveyed an unspoken message. Any wrong move would be met with immediate consequences. Tiana felt a strange mix of awe and relief. She had never seen anyone move like this before. She had read about heroes in books, seen them on TV, but this was real. Right in front of her, someone had stepped in and taken control of a terrifying situation, and she was witnessing it firsthand. The biker raised his hand, aiming a punch, but Jason reacted instantly. In one smooth motion, he sidestepped, using the man's momentum against him. The biker stumbled and almost fell, and Jason grabbed his arm, twisting it just enough to make him drop a chain he had been holding. The small clang of metal hitting the ground echoed in the lot, and Tiana let out a quiet breath she hadn't realized she was holding. The other bikers froze. They whispered among themselves, clearly unsure of how to proceed. Jason's calm, precise movements had shaken their confidence. They were no longer the predators. They were cautious, hesitant, afraid of making a mistake that could cost them. Tiana's mind was racing. She knew the immediate threat was still there. The bikers could still attack, still try something desperate, but now she felt like she had a chance. With Jason in front of her, she could see a path to safety, a way to escape if needed. Her fear was still present, but it was mixed with a new emotion: hope. Jason moved carefully but decisively toward the alley at the edge of the lot. He didn't rush. Every step was calculated. He positioned himself so that the bikers could not approach Tiana without being in his line of sight. Tiana followed closely, staying just behind him, trusting completely in his judgment. The scar-faced biker tried to act tough. He picked up a piece of wood, swinging it toward Jason, but Jason was ready. He grabbed the wood, twisting it out of the man's hands, and stepped firmly in front of Tiana. His movements were so smooth and controlled that Tiana could barely follow them with her eyes. Every motion had a purpose. Every gesture was meant to protect her while neutralizing the threat. The tall biker with tattoos stepped forward again, trying to intimidate Jason with a shout. "Back off or you'll regret it." His voice carried anger and frustration, but Jason didn't flinch. He met the biker's gaze steadily, his calmness in stark contrast to the man's aggression. It was clear who had control now. The biker's anger faltered slightly, replaced with caution. Tiana noticed something else. She could see that the bikers were starting to argue among themselves, their confidence breaking down. They were used to scaring people, controlling situations with fear, but Jason wasn't reacting like the people they had encountered before. He wasn't panicked, he wasn't reckless, and he wasn't intimidated. And that uncertainty was making them nervous. Jason continued to guide Tiana toward the alley. His steps were measured, his movements smooth, almost fluid. He positioned himself so that he could intercept any sudden attack while keeping Tiana safe. Every few seconds, he would glance at the bikers, reading their body language, anticipating their next move. Tiana followed his lead, her own fear slightly lessened by his presence. The bikers tried to regroup, whispering urgently. They were unsure whether to continue their plan or retreat. Their previous confidence had vanished, replaced by hesitation and fear. They could feel that any rash move could result in disaster. Jason had shifted the balance entirely. Tiana realized that she had been wrong about the situation. It wasn't just about running or hiding. It was about strategy, awareness, and careful action. Jason's calm, precise movements were teaching her that courage wasn't only about fighting. It was about thinking, planning, and staying focused even when fear was all around. Suddenly, the tall biker lunged forward, trying to grab Tiana. Jason reacted instantly. He blocked the attack, pushing the man back with controlled force, keeping him at a distance without causing serious harm. The biker stumbled and almost fell, his confidence shaken further. Tiana felt a wave of relief wash over her. She had never felt so close to danger, and yet so protected at the same time. The other bikers looked at their companion and hesitated. They could see that Jason was not only strong but skilled, aware, and completely focused. Any attack now could be dangerous for them. Their usual methods of intimidation were useless. They were now forced to consider retreat, something they were not used to. Tiana took a small step forward, keeping close to Jason. Her hands were still trembling, but her mind was clearer now. She realized she didn't have to be strong physically. She just had to stay aware, stay calm, and trust the person protecting her. Jason's presence gave her that confidence. One biker tried to swing a chain at Jason, hoping to create an opening to reach Tiana. But Jason moved with lightning speed, catching the chain midair and twisting it away. The biker lost his balance and stumbled backward. Tiana's eyes widened in awe. Every move Jason made was deliberate, precise, and protective. The tension in the lot was almost unbearable. The bikers were whispering urgently, unsure what to do. Their usual energy of aggression and intimidation was gone. Now they were cautious, fearful, unsure of their next move. Jason used this moment to slowly guide Tiana further toward the alley, giving them more space and time to escape if necessary. Tiana realized something important. She had been terrified moments ago, thinking there was no way out. But with someone calm, skilled, and focused, danger could be managed. Courage was not just about fighting back. It was about awareness, preparation, and trusting the right person. Jason was demonstrating this in every move he made. The bikers continued to hesitate. One of them muttered something angrily. Another shook his head, unsure of what to do. Jason's calm presence had disrupted their usual patterns. They had expected an easy target, someone who would panic or be intimidated. Instead, they were facing someone who anticipated their every move, who reacted with precision, and who protected the girl completely. Finally, Jason guided Tiana to the edge of the alley. It was a narrow escape route, but it offered a chance to get away safely. He positioned himself so that the bikers couldn't easily follow without being in his line of sight. Tiana's heart was still racing, but she could finally breathe a little more easily. She realized that she had learned something vital from this terrifying encounter. Fear could be overcome with calm, awareness, and the right support. Courage wasn't about being fearless. It was about acting wisely and staying alert, even when danger was near. Jason had shown her exactly that. The bikers were still in the lot, whispering and arguing. Their confidence had been shattered, their plan had failed, and their intimidation tactics were useless. Jason's calm, precise, and strategic approach had turned the situation completely in Tiana's favor. Tiana took a small step into the alley, feeling a mixture of relief, awe, and gratitude. She knew they weren't completely safe yet, but they had a chance to escape. With Jason by her side, she felt stronger, braver, and more aware. She had survived the worst of the threat, and now there was a path forward. Jason stayed alert, scanning the lot one last time before moving into the alley with Tiana. He guided her carefully, making sure she stayed safe and out of reach. The bikers remained behind, unsure whether to follow or retreat. The moment had shifted completely. The predators had lost control, and the girl they had intended to harm was no longer powerless. Tiana realized that this day would stay with her forever, not just because of the danger she faced, but because of what she had learned. Courage, awareness, and support could change the outcome of even the most frightening situations. And in that moment, she understood how one calm, skilled person could make all the difference in the world. Tiana followed Jason cautiously through the narrow alley, her legs still trembling from the adrenaline of the encounter. The air felt heavier here, but she was starting to feel a small sense of relief. They were moving away from the open lot, and the immediate danger of the bikers cornering her was lessening with every careful step. Yet she knew they weren't completely safe. The bikers were still nearby, and one wrong move could bring the nightmare back in an instant. Jason kept his eyes sharp, scanning every corner, every shadow, and every movement. His body was tense but controlled, his posture exuding confidence and readiness. Tiana had started to notice how calm he was, how focused, even in the face of real danger. She realized that what had protected her wasn't just his strength, it was his awareness, his strategy, and his ability to stay composed when everyone else might panic. As they moved deeper into the alley, Jason's gaze flicked constantly toward the lot behind them. He could see the bikers lingering, whispering, and making gestures as if trying to decide what to do next. Tiana couldn't hear everything, but she could sense the tension radiating from them. Their usual confidence had vanished, replaced with caution and fear. Jason's presence had changed the entire dynamic. Tiana felt a surge of gratitude. She didn't know this man personally, but he had risked everything to protect her. She wanted to speak, to say thank you, but the words caught in her throat. She felt overwhelmed by everything that had happened in the past few minutes. Her fear, the adrenaline, the relief, and the awe at Jason's skill and calmness all swirled together in a dizzying mix of emotions. Suddenly, one of the bikers, braver or more reckless than the others, tried to approach them through a side street connected to the alley. Jason noticed immediately. His reflexes were fast, honed from years of experience. He moved swiftly, positioning himself between the biker and Tiana. With a precise motion, he blocked the path and used a small, controlled push to stop the man in his tracks. The biker stumbled back, surprised by the sudden resistance. Tiana's heart skipped a beat. She realized that even though they had a moment of safety, danger could still appear at any time. She stayed close to Jason, her trust in him growing. He didn't just protect her physically. He seemed to anticipate everything, almost as if he knew what the bikers would do before they did it. The remaining bikers, seeing their companion stumble, hesitated. They whispered urgently among themselves, clearly unsure whether to continue their plan or retreat. Their confidence had been completely shattered. They had expected to intimidate a frightened girl, to assert control and to get away with it. Instead, they were faced with someone who was calm, alert, and capable of neutralizing their threats. Jason took this moment to guide Tiana even further along the alley, choosing a path that would give them more distance and more options for escape. His movements were deliberate, smooth, and purposeful. He didn't rush, but he didn't linger either. Every step was calculated to keep Tiana safe and to maintain control over the situation. Tiana noticed the broken fences, piles of old cardboard, and other obstacles along the alley. Jason navigated them carefully, stepping over debris and moving around corners with an awareness that made her feel protected. She realized that she could trust him completely. His focus was entirely on keeping her safe, and that focus gave her courage even in the midst of fear. Suddenly, one of the bikers tried a desperate move. He grabbed a loose pipe from the ground and swung it toward Jason. In a split second, Jason reacted. He grabbed the pipe, twisting it out of the biker's hands, and pushed him firmly but carefully against a wall, preventing him from causing harm. The biker's eyes widened with shock. He hadn't expected anyone to react with such precision. Tiana felt a surge of relief and awe. Jason didn't just protect her. He controlled the situation without unnecessary aggression. He was strong, skilled, and strategic. She realized that courage wasn't just about fighting. It was about knowing what to do, when to act, and how to protect others without making the situation worse. The bikers now fully understood that their intimidation tactics had failed. Their anger and aggression were turning into fear. They